Hello and welcome to a new video. The autumn weather has finally fully come to the Czech Republic and I am so here for it. I'm so glad I can finally make myself a cup of tea and not boil with it. So I'm really happy that finally we're moving into this season. Now, if you see me putting out all those ingredients, you may not think that it looks much like fall, and you would be right. I'm making a very fresh looking salad. I'm using some bell peppers, a cucumber, and some tomatoes as well. And later I will add a little bit of mozzarella to it too. Now, I don't know about you, but I am not in the habit of making salads to go with our main courses. And I don't know why, because it's something that my mom has always done. Like almost every dinner, we had a salad to go with whatever else we were eating. So I definitely have, or should have, this habit from home, but I just never think to buy the vegetables or the ingredients to make a salad. But I often think about it, and because especially with meals, which you will see me cook a little bit later, like this one that we're having for this dinner, where there is no vegetables in the meal, it's just meat and potatoes. I often feel, no, I don't want to say guilty, but maybe like, oh, you know, we should probably add some vegetables to this. And obviously, having a salad on the side is a great way to do that. So this time I remembered, and when I went to the grocery store to pick up all these ingredients, I also made sure to get all the salad ingredients. So this main meal that I've mentioned, we have a very traditional Czech sausage. It's actually called the wine sausage, and that's because even though this is from meat, pork to be specific, there is some wine that is added to the mixture. In some Czech families, people will serve this on the Christmas dinner table as well. So that's just how traditional this kind of a sausage is in this country. So the wine sausage, and I always find it really fun because what you do with it, it's very, how to say, like soft, and you can bend it very easily. So what you typically do with it is you roll it into this little spiral, and then you pierce it through with a couple of these, I don't know what you would call them, super sharp metal sticks, and it just has a very, I would say, fun shape to it. So once I'm done making all the spirals, I put it into a little bit of all-purpose flour as well, and then it just goes into the pan where I've used some lard to fry it up. And then I'm serving it with some buttery potatoes and that salad on the side. You might remember that a few videos back, I was very proud of myself for being able to keep the herbs on my balcony alive for quite a long time, for me at least, for a couple months. Well, that period has come to an end finally, and I had to throw out the thyme, which was just completely dried up. The rosemary I ended up keeping in the end because I felt like it was only half dead. So I just snipped some of the bits off and gave it some water, and hopefully it's going to spring back to life a little bit more. But I got some new flowers in the flower shop earlier this day, and I've put those on the little shelves on the side of our balcony to give it a little bit more of that fall color. And we're back to salads. I am really trying to do this salad thing. Now this one, to me at least, feels a lot more season appropriate because it's carrots and apples. And I mean, those are very much fall vegetables and fruits. So what I'm doing is I am peeling the carrots and then taking the middle parts out of the apples, and then I'm just grating both of those together. Now, for this kind of salad, the juicier your carrots and apples are, the more amazing this is going to turn out. And what I'm doing once I'm done with grating everything is I'm making sure that there are no bits on the side of the bowl, and I'm kind of like with my fork squeezing down or pushing down on everything just to get more of those juices out. And I will then cover it up and put it in the fridge, kind of let it marinate, let the juices get out a little bit more. And then that thing, when it's a little bit chilled from the fridge as well, it's so good. Like, if I didn't think that I need to share, I would probably be able to eat that entire bowl on my own in just one sitting. And here I have a main dish again that doesn't include any vegetables, hence the salad I just made. This time I'm making a rabbit, which again is very traditional to have in the fall. Well, I guess this one is more like all year round, but really I at least tend to think about it as like a fall meal. And as you can see, I've got a whole rabbit and I have to cut it up in order to fit into my pot and then, you know, to cook properly through. And I like, maybe some of you would struggle with this. I know I certainly did the first time I got a full, you know, a whole rabbit or like a whole chicken as well. But over time and with a little bit of, you know, experience, I really think that there's just nothing to it. You kind of, I feel like you're able to see pretty well where the muscles are, where the meaty bits are. And so you just cut around those, and I just like, when it gets to the bone, I just take the, you know, meat scissors or whatever and just cut through it. I don't really think about, oh, is this the exact right spot where I need to cut. The way I think about it is I want to make sure I'm leaving as little meat as possible on the bones, or like discarding as little meat as possible. That's really the only principle I try to go by, and then, you know, just cut wherever it feels like it's a good place. And I'm using a new recipe from one of my cookbooks that I think called this garlic rabbit. It's basically just a whole bunch of garlic with the rabbit, with a little bit of chicken broth, which you can see in those little bowls. So it's basically a whole load of butter. Then you put the rabbit in. Now, I think that here the cookbook just forgot to mention this step, or it just said to put the rabbit in, put in all the garlic, which was, I was using like 12 cloves or something like that. And then to directly put in the sauce, which was a mixture of chicken broth and sour cream. And to just put that over the rabbit, have it covered, and just bring it to a boil and let it simmer for like an hour and a half. But I don't know how much you can see this, but the picture in the cookbook has the rabbit very much browned. So I think next time when I'm making this, I'm first going to set the temperature on a higher heat and brown all the pieces of the rabbit, and only then I am going to let it simmer, just to give it that nice color. I also had a few pieces of that garlic on the side. I didn't put everything into the sauce on the rabbit, so I have just browned those on the side, put them on a little paper towel to get a little bit of the fat out of them, and then later they went on top of everything as like a little sprinkle. And for the side for this, I am using some dumplings. I didn't make these, I just got them at the store. I'm guessing that in countries where you don't usually consume these kinds of dumplings, it might be difficult for you to find something like this, but it's absolutely fine if you serve this with rice. That would go with it really well, or even just some pasta, I think would work. When my partner had a bite of this, he said it was absolutely delicious, and I was so happy because he's usually very skeptical of anything new that I'm trying out. But I don't want to cook the same thing over and over again, so I'm really happy that this is something new that I can introduce more often now. And it wouldn't be a proper fall video if I didn't bake anything. So here I am getting started on a nut pie. You might remember from way back, it was I think one of my earliest videos where I talked about the crazy weather in the spring, where we had some really hot weather and then it got freezing again, and as a result, many of the fruit and nut trees have completely lost any power to bloom and to have any produce. So we have no apples and no walnuts from our garden this year, but luckily we had many walnuts in the previous 2 seasons, so these ones are from our country house garden, and I'm getting to use quite a bit of them in this pie. As for all the other ingredients, I have melted some butter, putting that into a bowl, then some flour and sugar. And by the way, all the exact measurements can be found in the description down below. There is also 1 egg yolk that goes into this, and I'm putting the egg white into a separate bowl, and we will work with that a little bit later. I am mixing everything well together, and then you can see me get some foil ready, and I will put everything on the counter, quickly work it with my hands, and then put it into like a little roll, and then wrap it up in the foil and put it in the fridge. Now you want to do this quickly because of all the butter that's in it. It's very sticky and it can get very runny if it gets warmer. So that's why you also need to chill this dough before you can put it into your pie form. While the dough is chilling in the fridge, I'm getting the form ready, so spreading some butter over it and then dusting it with a little bit of flour. And then I can get started on the filling, the nut filling. So I've already mixed up all of the nuts that I'm using. I am then adding quite a bit of sugar into that. And then I need to separate some more egg yolks and egg whites. Now, you will see that what happens here, I think it was like the 2nd or 3rd egg, the whole thing just went into the bowl with the egg whites. And I thought that was the end of it, because what I'm doing later with the egg whites is whipping them up. And I have heard, read, seen before that as soon as you have even a tiny drop of the egg yolk go into your egg whites, it's going to be literally impossible to whip it up into like any good shape, and that you should just throw it all out and start again having just the egg whites. But of course, like, I'm just not someone who can throw out, 3 perfectly good egg whites just because it may not whip up nicely. So I thought, well, it may not whip up, but I'll use it anyways. Like, you're whipping it up so that you're getting air into this and it gets more fluffy, but I'm sure it's going to work even if it's not super fluffy. But we'll see how this turns out. So I'm putting the 3 egg yolks and then 1 full egg into the nut mixture. And then it was time to get the dough into the pie form, and then I would mix up the filling and pour it in. Now, this dough definitely requires you to have some patience. It's super, incohesive. I don't know what word to use. It just crumbles like crazy. So you really can't roll it out and then put it in. It just starts tearing, and you just have to cut off small bits and press them down into the form and hope that they stick. The trick I've learned is to do it slowly as well. Like, if you're patting like crazy and thinking that, the more force and the more speed you use, the more likely it's going to stick, that's definitely wrong. You have to go kind of slowly, and it is going to stick. Of course, the bottom is not such a problem, but it's the side walls where it tends to kind of like peel off, fall off, because you have floured the form, so to make it non-stick, right? So it's kind of doing what it should be doing, but you want it to stick just for a little bit until you put the filling in. So you kind of have to just work your way through this. Oh, and by the way, you saw me take a portion of this dough and put it in the freezer. We are going to use that on top of the cake, but we want it to be as hard as possible, because what we will do is we are going to grate it on it later. So in order for us to be able to do that, it has to be really hard. Now, I've remembered as I was working on this that I have thought in the past, because I've made this pie a couple of times already and I always run into this issue, but I have a very similar, like it's the same type of dough that I use for a quiche, but that one I'm able to like completely roll out and just stick it in the form without any issues. But it is a little bit different because there is no sugar in it and no egg. It's, I think, flour and water, and I can't remember what else goes into it. So I'm guessing, like, for this pie, you do need it to be sweet, but I kept thinking, of course, I thought about it way too late here, that I need to figure out a way to mix those two doughs to make it both sweet and more workable. And then it was done, and it was time to see what's going to happen with those egg whites. And guess what? They just whipped up absolutely fine. There weren't any issues. It didn't take me an hour to get it to like a good form. So that just ended up working absolutely fine. I think from my experience, at least, what's helping me or what makes the most difference when it comes to whipping up egg whites is the type of bowl that I use. And I found that there is a difference if I use a metal one like this one, where it just works, versus if I forget about the metal and I just use a plastic one. And with the plastic one, it really takes a while and sometimes doesn't even work at all. And I know I'm supposed to use either metal or glass because the plastic is more porous. Therefore, there is more grease that sticks to the sides of the bowl. Even though you clean it, it's just in there. And I'm guessing it really negatively impacts the whippability of your egg whites. So once those are nice and firm, I get them into the nut mixture and kind of more gently mix everything together. So you do want to be thorough. You want to have this properly mixed, but you don't want to go too fast because that would kind of defeat the purpose of making this, meringue or whatever it's called, because it's all those air bubbles that we care for. So we don't want to pierce those by going too fast. And then the filling goes into the pie. We get the rest of the dough from the freezer, and like I said before, I grate it on top of the pie. And then it goes into the oven. I think I had it there for about 40 minutes, but of course you just have to work with your own oven and your own experiences with how fast it bakes. And this pie, I have to say, it definitely is one of my favorites as well. And I would absolutely recommend it even to people that are not huge fans of nuts, because it's just so different when it's mixed with all that sugar and those egg whites. It's just so good. And don't be surprised if one bite is enough. It's definitely super filling. And I would hope, at least, that it's also healthy because the nuts are healthy. So this was my fall pie recipe. I hope you have enjoyed that and everything else you saw me cook, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!